Hey everyone, it's NovelKeys. This video was in the works for some time, but there were so many things happening simultaneously, namely the Instagram followers giveaway and the amazing reception that got, to the desk mat interest checks and doing the groundwork to ensure that goes as smoothly as possible. So yeah, with all of those things happening, the content sort of had to take a back seat. But here we are today with a new video. A good number of you have probably seen the Zero Mods build video of this Tofu65 keyboard, and I'm sure we can all agree that it did not sound very good. And I only realized halfway through editing this video that it wasn't technically a Zero Mods build because I installed case foam, so it basically would have sounded worse. Anyways, let's disassemble. Alright, the keycaps are off. Here I like to flip the board, bongo on it for a bit, and brush off anything you wouldn't want getting onto the PCB. Alright, time to take off these NovelKeys cream switches I'd been breaking in for almost 2 months now. And now with the switches off, the polycarbonate plate can be removed. I guess I could have unscrewed the PCB from the case first, but yeah, I'm doing that now. And this is the case foam, the one mod that I forgot should not have been in my Zero Mod build. Whoops. So to prep for the stabilizer lubing, I'm taking dielectric grease and Krytox 205G0. Dielectric grease for the plastic to metal contact parts, and Krytox for the plastic to plastic contact points. I unscrewed the stabilizers from the PCB and took them apart to prep them for lubing. These are the Duroc V1 transparent stabilizers. I'll lube the plastic housing, then the plastic legs, and finally move on to the wires. So this is the stabilizer foam that I also got from KBDfans, $2 for a pack of 20. Since the right shift key doesn't have a stabilizer, I will only need 8 pieces here. One thing I will say about these, it's fairly thick and dense. I personally think it's a little too thick because as you can see here, the stabilizers will need to be pushed down with a bit of force for it to be screwed onto the PCB. Not the kind of force that would break anything, but working with any sort of sensitive components, you get a little nervous about it. However, it does compress after you screw in the stabilizers once. And now it's time to test the stabilizers by putting on the plate and some switches. And spoiler alert, this is where I probably should have spent a little more time to double or even triple check if there was absolutely no rattle on the stabilizers. But I honestly felt at the time that it was fine. Maybe I was distracted, but anyways, this is what made this video a little longer than it should have been. But I wanted to share my experience, so maybe you wouldn't make the same mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, I have a few more coming. One of them being very specific to this process of screwing in the PCB to the case. In hindsight, I probably should have waited to screw in the PCB until the switches and the plate were on it too. The next step is lubing the switches. I will be using Krytox 205G0 for the switch lube, and the springs will be bag lubed using Krytox GPL 106. This lubing station from Oromec in Toronto was very handy. Although it couldn't hold all of my switches, it helped keep my desk organized, and lubing was a lot more efficient this way. When I lubed the springs, I poured in the GPL 106 oil into a Ziploc bag, gave it a small air pocket, and shook the springs for a good minute before spreading them out on paper towel. For the stems, I lubed all sides and of course the legs, mandatory for any linear switch. The top housing was pretty quick work. I just dabbed some lube on the parts where there's contact with the stem on the upstroke to dampen the sound there. I would say at the end of the day, the switches were still a little scratchy. I probably could have lubed them a little bit more, but I think at the risk of over-lubing. Or maybe I'm just bad. You can decide that at the end. So yeah, I thought everything was going smoothly until, I tightened the screws too hard when installing the PCB, so I had to take everything out again. When I put everything back together and I tried typing, I noticed a little bit of rattle coming from the spacebar, and of course, I couldn't leave it like that. So yeah, I had to take everything apart. Again. And I actually took everything apart for a third time because I just could not get rid of the last bit of rattle. You won't see that here because by that point I was so tired that I couldn't bother to record it. I realized I was doing something differently compared to before. I was using a paintbrush to lube the wires instead of dipping them directly in the tube or container of dielectric grease. So basically there wasn't enough lube. So what did I learn from all this? Take your time. And really make sure you are okay with the stabs before moving on to the next steps. Especially important if you're soldering the switches in. People ask me why I did a stock Tofu build to begin with. Well, I mean, if you spent more than $370 US and over $40 in import fees to build a custom keyboard, you'd expect it to sound half decent, wouldn't you? If you go custom, you kind of have to go all the way. lube the switches, the stabs, add dampening foam, and so on. Otherwise, you really won't be getting your money's worth. Just wanted to say belated Happy New Year, and thank you all for your continued support. And now, the type test. See you in the next one.